Welcome to the Jaybe show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. My name is James Fauntleroy. Hello, how you doing? Good to see you. All right, just to let you guys know, the Jaybe show is here every single Sunday at 1. You can also catch me here on RBN on Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. Now, if you guys have not, you guys can go to revolutionaryblackout.substack.com in order to get your notifications, because we know the YouTube notifications are not that reliable. As well, if you would like to, you guys can also subscribe to our Patreon as well if you are there. As well, we like to announce that we also do fundraisers for our labor. So for our graphics designer, Erin, she does an amazing job. You guys can go to Venmo at Revolutionary Blackout or Cash App $ mutual aid forever. So thank you so very much to Erin. She does an amazing job, and thank you for that. Also, just to let you guys know, I will be doing a stream later today at 4 p.m. just to let you guys know on my channel. So just to keep you guys abreast of what's going on. Now, as per usual, I like to go to the chat, say hello to everybody that's in the chat, just to get things started so that we can get on with our news stories today. I'm going to make it a quick one. So, boom, we have Stephen T coming in saying, hey, JB. Hey, Stephen, so good to see you here. Terry Connolly is coming in saying, good afternoon, JB and fam. So nice to have you here as well, Terry Connolly. And yes, let's get to the stories that we're going to be talking about today. So this is the stories that we're going to be talking about today. Earthquake in Morocco. This happened over the last few days. This is a really deep and tragic story that's going on in North Africa that I would like to talk about, bring to your attention, and also talk about how this affects people geopolitically. And so, because of course we have to turn this into a moment talking about the system that we live in as well. So, and also good kidney news. Why am I in the photo? You guys are going to be like, what? This is going to be interesting. Now, this news story has probably circulated a little bit, but I think I should bring it to attention. And I'm also going to intersect this with the system as well. You guys are going to want to stay for that too, because that's what JB is all about. So good to see all of you here. So we're going to be talking about Morocco. Now, this is going to be a sad story. So recently, in the last few days, a 6.8 magnitude earthquake has decimated Morocco as of recently. And so this earthquake has killed more than 2,000 people. This is specifically in Marrakesh, Morocco. So we're going to look at the article really quick, and then we're going to go over that. And then as we read this story, then also going to be seeing some of the devastation that has happened in Morocco as well. And we're going to tie this into how this system exacerbates natural disasters like this. So if we're going to go there, we're going to go to the AP. The AP talks about, it says, powerful quake in Morocco kills more than 2,000 people and damages historic buildings in Marrakech. So it starts off, it says, a rare, powerful earthquake struck Morocco, sending people racing from their beds into the streets and toppling buildings in mountainous villages and ancient cities not built to withstand such force. More than 2,000 people were killed, and the toll was expected to rise as rescuers struggled Saturday to reach hard-hit remote areas. The magnitude 6.8 earthquake, the biggest to hit the North African country in 120 years, sent people fleeing their homes in terror and disbelief late Friday. One man said dishes and wall hangings began raining down and people were knocked off their feet. The quake brought down walls made from stone and masonry, covering whole communities with rubble. The devastation gripped each town along the high outlet steep and winding switchbacks in similar ways. Homes folding in on themselves and mothers and fathers crying as boys and helmet-clad police carried the dead through the streets. Remote villages like those in drought-stricken Orgain Valley were largely cut off from the world when they lost electricity and cell phone service. By midday, there were outside mourning neighbors surveying the damage on their camera phones and telling one another, "May God save us." And so this is what happened. And it's just the destruction that has happened in Marrakesh, in Morocco, is heartbreaking. I do have some footage that I will be showing, but only one video I passed, I will not be showing because it broke my heart so much I almost started crying. I can describe it to you. It involves a newborn, and that's all I'm going to say. But the things that are happening in parts of the world are definitely exacerbated by a system that we have that could circumvent the tragedies or at least lessen the tragedies that happens in these regions. So I'm going to be going to this thought here. Let me go into my notes here. Okay. Okay. Oof. All right. By the way, so what happened in Morocco happened in late in the evening as people were going to bed. So let's go.
Good evening. It happened late at night when most people were asleep. There was no warning. And it was absolutely horrific in its power. This is the moment a 6.8 magnitude earthquake rocked Morocco. You can see people fleeing into an alley only for debris to then start tumbling down. The quake was centered here, just south of the popular tourist destination of Marrakesh. The death toll already stands at over 2,000 people. And as we get new images in of the destruction, it's clear that number is only going to rise. Now, it is a...
So just so that you all, let me take this down. You guys don't need that. So just so that everybody is aware, when tragedies like this happen, especially in nations that have a system, capitalist system, where they don't build things to withstand natural disasters. Typically, it's building structures to withstand natural disasters typically costs more money. There's more investment that is necessary when it comes to these types of structures. And a lot of people who, build homes and businesses, corporations and the like, especially if it's something that doesn't happen as often, you typically want to be more lax in how you build it because you're like, well, it'll be a long time before that ever happens again. And a lot of times they do that in order to save money, especially corporations. They will do whatever they can to save a buck. And so this is why it's important that we have more structurally sound building structures so that when tragedies like this or natural disasters like this do strike, then people are more safeguarded because ultimately lives are at stake. And so, of course, a lot of times what will end up happening is in areas where they have more frequent seismic activity. If the government cares enough, they will put in regulations so that these companies, corporations, home builders, what have you, will make the structures more able to withstand earthquakes or here in the state of Florida, more able to withstand tornadoes and hurricanes and powerful inclement weather. But a lot of times what ends up happening is that they don't do that. One thing that I find interesting is that there is in Africa where a lot of times people, particularly people who are more of the racist variety, will say, well, you guys built mud huts, things like that. And if you look at some of the huts that African people build, if you notice, a lot of times what they'll do is that they will build it in more of, instead of like a house structure where you have the house and then you have the roof, and the roof kind of comes offset off of the top and it has a lip over the house. Instead, what they'll do is when it comes to their huts is that they'll build the entire structure with an arch, right? It'll be a dome. When a powerful wind comes over a dome, because of the aerodynamics of the dome, it actually goes over it instead of hitting it and toppling it over. And it's round. The housing structure is round so that the air goes around it instead of hitting it like a flat. So, for instance, here's a can of nuts, and here's a book. If a wind gust comes, which one do you think is the most likely to topple over? Well, let's say if you have a box or a cylindrical structure, well, what's going to happen? Cylindrical structure is going to be able to withstand the wind because the wind is actually going to be able to go around it easier, right? Versus a box. Box may end up tumbling over at the very least. So the thing is that when you have different structures, you know, it may cost a little bit more. It may be a little bit more costly, but in the end, it's about the human lives, right? But this is what happens when you try to make profit and try to cut away as much as you possibly can so that you can preserve the profit motive. And so countries like Morocco are, you know, not that much different because they still have a capitalist structure within them. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this as well, is that and I'm using the necessity of buildings having to withstand powerful winds to basically say that if you built buildings that would be able to withstand earthquakes, then you'd be able to preserve more alive than just building the building and thinking, well, it's a once in a lifetime thing. It's not going to happen to us, because it very may well happen. Because if it happened 100 years ago, I would just honestly make it so that it can withstand it just in case it happens. But unfortunately, that's not what happened here. So let's continue.
Is only going to rise. Now it is a race against time to save those trapped in the buildings and try to get to the hardest hit areas that are cut off from the rest of the country. Many, including American tourists, now sleeping outside, fearing more aftershocks. The State Department late today confirming some Americans were injured. We have two reports tonight, beginning with Matt Bradley.
Security footage showing the rumbling, the shaking, and then the screaming as a 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck Morocco. Moroccans are now struggling to reach survivors thought to be buried beneath rubble. It's the most powerful tremor to hit Morocco in more than 100 years. Suddenly we saw things falling from above, like dishes and other things that were fixed to the wall. We were unable to sit or stand. Then we fled outside, said this resident. Really, the earthquake was very strong. Moroccan military reporting more than 2,000 people killed, another 2,000 injured. The numbers have been climbing all day, and they will probably continue to grow as first responders pull more bodies from ruined homes. We ran outside, but a wall fell on my head, said this man. Sky News' Adam Parsons is on the ground in Morocco.
One of the things that I also want to bring out, and I'm using Morocco as an example as well, is that a system that we have that is primarily for profit, exacerbates the tragedies even larger, because you also want to think about the after effects of what happens to these people. Now, I'm guessing to say I actually should have researched this before I started, but let me see. Let me take a look. Okay. So from what I can see is Morocco does not have universal health care. So that, by that being said, yeah. So if a tragedy like this happens, right, you suffer a head trauma from falling debris and you wind up in the hospital. Luckily, you survive. But then are you going to be able to survive the medical bills? We get earthquakes here in the United States. That's for sure. What about housing? We don't have housing as a human right. So what do people do in that situation here in the United States? You see, the interesting thing about what happens in tragedies like this is that people typically don't think about when natural disaster strikes and how that exacerbates the issue of poverty, stress, physical health. They do not think about these things until it happens. And they'll say, well, the government comes in and steps in. Well, what's going on in Maui right now, especially in Lahaina? Right? Natural disaster, tragedy strikes, and they're still suffering in Lahaina. So it's the same thing. When natural disaster strikes, the problem is exacerbated by a capitalist system that is clearly just for profit. And this is the tie that we have to make, because this isn't just a story of tragedy. This is a story of tragedy that's going to expound after the tragedy has struck. This is going to be a domino effect on top of what has already happened. How many people are going to need money to bury their dead loved ones? I mean, they already have a mass grave right now. But what if that person was the breadwinner of the family? What are they supposed to do? Something, God forbid, happened to me. How would my mother survive? Thankfully, I have brothers. But what if I was an only child? See? This is why it is important to have a system where the fundamentals of human survival are not commodified. Housing, education, food, water, healthcare, these things, and transportation and utilities should not really be commodified in a system, because you need these things to survive. If disaster strikes, then at least everybody will still be preserved alive within the system, because they have those things that are there to make sure that they survive. If you take these things away, then you are adding on to the suffering of people when tragedy strikes. I live in Florida. We have hurricanes and we have tornadoes. Many people have suffered because of tropical storms, hurricanes. Remember back in 95, Hurricane Andrew? South Florida was devastated by Hurricane Andrew. And a lot of people, when these things happen, sometimes some recover, some don't. So just like what happened to the people in Morocco, it can happen to us here, and it has happened to us here. The question is, are we going to continuously keep a system that adds salt to the wound of despair? Or are we going to change it so that if in case it does happen, the tragedy is the only thing you have to worry about? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. And tragedies happen all the time within the United States. Car accidents, drownings, somebody gets hit by lightning, a fire, right? These things happen all the time. Tragedy strikes. But are we going to make it so that the impact is lessened by having a base of material conditions for everybody else? So let me continue. I just wanted to make that point because a lot of times people don't think about things like that until it happens.
Morocco.
There is still real fear about what could happen. Here's a very good example of that nervousness. This restaurant behind me was badly damaged by the earthquake on Friday night, but it only actually collapsed hours and hours later.
The quake struck in the high Atlas Mountains shortly before midnight. This security camera video of the first tremors shows people fleeing cafes in panic and barely escaping falling debris. We went to sleep, but after a few seconds, we felt the earthquake and we went out of the house, this man said. After that, the entire house was destroyed. The epicenter was about 50 miles from the historic city of Marrakesh.
Just as a notation for anyone who may experience that issue, if you are within an earthquake and you are close to an exit, get out as fast as you can and get to as an open area as possible, because nothing can fall on you if you're in an open area. That's the point. Try to get out to open areas as fast as you can. If you cannot, then you get into an area where it's the most structurally sound of the building. Particularly, that's places like doorways. But if you are close to the exit, get out, get into an open area, and do not go into any buildings until you're sure. And typically, aftershocks do happen within 30 minutes to 45 minutes afterwards. So make sure that you stay safe when it comes to these conditions that may happen. So, first thought, ground shakes, get out. Get out of your house, get out of your job, get out of your building. And if you cannot, get into an area where it's more structurally sound, like a doorway. Okay? Just be safe. Just wanted to put that out there too, because sometimes people don't realize that when it happens. Let's continue.
Marrakesh, its beloved Medina, or old city of labyrinthine alleyways, now partly damaged.
So parts of the Medina are fine. Other parts, as you can see behind me, are not so fine. The older buildings that are less structurally sound have suffered the most.
And Jose, we might not even know the full extent of the damage yet. Rescue workers are struggling to reach some of those remote villages in the Atlas Mountains near the epicenter. That's where they're expecting to find some of the worst destruction. Jose?
Thanks.
All right. So I just want to get back to, and we want to go back over the response as far as different nations are concerned. I just want to go over this as well, because this is an important piece as well. Let me see. All right, so I'm gonna start off with this. It says Morocco will observe 3 days of national mourning with flags at half staff and on all public facilities, the official news agency MAP reported. World leaders offered to send aid or rescue crews as condolences poured from countries in Europe, the Middle East, and the Group of 20 summit in India. The president of Turkey, which lost tens of thousands of people in a massive earthquake earlier this year, was among those proposing assistance. France and Germany, with large populations of Moroccan origin, with people of Moroccan origin, also offered to help. And the leaders of both Ukraine and Russia expressed support for Moroccans. An exceptional move, neighboring rival Algeria offered to open its airspace to allow eventual humanitarian aid or medical evacuation flights to travel to and from Morocco. Algeria closed the airspace when its government severed diplomatic ties with Morocco in 2021 over a series of issues. The countries have a decades-long dispute involving the territory of Western Sahara. So, just to let you guys know, just to give a geographical examination of Algeria versus Morocco, I just want to share this with you guys as well, because I think this is also important so you guys can see. Let me see. Oh my goodness. How are you going to continue without? Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to, let me, okay. So we're going to show North Africa. So here is Morocco right here. Morocco is the upper northwest corner of Africa. So if you guys want to know where Morocco is, that's where Morocco is. And it barely touches Spain and Portugal, right? And they actually felt the earthquake all the way in Portugal. And they also felt the earthquake in Algeria. But the epicenter was in Morocco, the heaviest of the damage. And so when they say that they had a dispute over the Western Sahara, right below to the bottom left-hand side of Morocco, it borders Western Sahara. So this is where the dispute was talking about. So that's what they're referring to, because Morocco is bordered directly next to Algeria. So just in case anybody's curious about the geographical locations, about what was the dispute, but what's going on is Algeria has also opened its airspace to Morocco so that they can do evacuation flights. So if somebody from Morocco wants to go to places like Libya, Niger, or let's say they want to go to South Africa, or they want to go to Kenya, they may have family there, or they want to go to Mali. They have all these different locations that they can go within this space. They can go to Libya. Well, I don't know if they go to Libya, but if they want to go to Israel, not Israel, but Egypt, if they wanted to go to these different countries, then they can also fly through there, including if they want to go to Turkey. Or if they, needed to go to any one of these other, like Iran, Kuwait, Pakistan, what have you. But that's just to give you guys a bit of a synopsis of the geographics of the region. So I just wanted to share that as well as what's going on internationally and what they're talking about in regards to the outpouring of support from the international community as well. Now, so one of the things that I actually want to share as well is there's some clips as well that's being shared online about what happened. So make sure I got that. I think I can play BBC. If not, then I'll just mute it. But So this is out of BBC. This is clips. And I can mute it. But this is basically showing where it is, and in conjunction with the oh, hang on, sorry.
شويه انا جالس السطح، جالس كنشم الهواء شويه حتى كنسمع ديك الزز. توقيلا انا شي حاجه حدايا، واحد الوقيته كنقول لا داكشي غادي وكيتجهد. واحد الوقيته كنسمع واحد الزنقه عندنا في الدار كدير زز، شي مش طلع ماشي هو. واحد الوقيته كنسمع صداع، قلت لخوتي الزلزال هذا نزلوا شويه. نزلنا هنا حتى كتشوف الناس كلشي مساكن، الناس كبار الناس صغار. اخوتي في
واحد الدار مشات وجات، واحد الضربه واعره، بنادم كلشي تخلع. انا قلت ما فهمت والو. ما
مزيان
تقريبا حوس و190 حالات.
Wow, 15,000. So that's what happened. The overview basically from BBC. This was shared by rapper Immortal Technique. He also retweeted this. So shout out to Immortal Technique for doing what you can for the people in North Africa, because what happened was just devastating. Immortal Technique, I think he's a socialist. He's a rapper, but he's a socialist. So, and he actually has great music out there. So, regarding what's going on within, communities as well. But this is something I wanted to share, how strong this earthquake was. It literally rocked a water spring back to life because it was inactive for a long time, this spring. So let's take a look.
حاجة يا عظيم. غير كده كان يجري الزنزال يفلد الخان مولانا. شلالة قرا برمان دائمين ولون.
So basically, yeah, there's a lot that was going on there as far as it was so strong that it rocked a water spring back to life. That's how strong and powerful that earthquake was. I think we already saw that. This is an interesting footage as well here. These are people in a mosque. While they were praying, the earthquake happened. And we're going to see this as well. So these are all the people that are praying in the mosque.
اللهم ارحمنا برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين. اللهم ارحمنا برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين. اللهم ارحمنا برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين. اللهم لا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا.
Now, if you guys see, while they're praying, the camera's shaking a little bit because the earthquake is literally happening while they're praying. I find this very interesting.
اللهم ثبت القدح فأقدامنا بقدرتك يا ذا القوة المتين.
So they did not leave to stop praying, which I find stunning. So yeah, that was something that was out of the ordinary to me. But I'm glad that they survived. I'm glad they're still alive. Here is this video of a child that's recounting what happened.
ماشي حد مثلي بيموتنا اللي نبيت ها شيشة ايه كمان رحم ربي نهي السنة استرحم ربي.
And that's the let me see. Yeah, it says the entire family of the boy perished in Morocco earthquake. Only he and his grandfather survived. And I'm just looking for footage that, yeah. And so here's some of the aftermath of what happened as well. But this just goes to show what I've been saying as far as our systems. Our systems are wholly inadequate because a lot of times where we could build more structurally sound buildings, it's just not feasible, especially in a for-profit system. So this is some of what happened as far as what you can see going on. And we just got to think about the human element rather than the profit element instead. And I think this is something that we could definitely change in this country. But the thing is that it's up to us in order to change the system entirely. Because this could be us next. It could be you next. And so we don't want to see this happen. And in order to blunt the tragedy or to make it less tragic, we need to change the system for our benefit. So yeah, that's what happened in Morocco. And yeah, so like I said in the title, our hearts are with the people of Morocco for, what they're going through. A lot of times, I'm not sure of how many people in independent media actually talked about this, but it happened, recently over the weekend. So, but yeah, so our brothers and sisters and siblings internationally, what they're going through, our hearts are out there with them. So yeah. So I'm going to be going to the chat just for a second to talk about what's going on. Let me go here. Let me see. Take that down. Let me see. And I don't know what's going on with Rumble, but Rumble's not working right now. Like, I did everything correctly, and for some reason, Rumble's not working. So Sorry to anybody that was trying to watch on Rumble, but it's just not working at the moment. Okay, so thanks to DB. Says many old buildings can be reinforced well against earthquakes. So thank you so very much for that on Rockfin as well. You know, something I was just thinking about, as a dialysis patient, I had a nurse, her name was Fatima, and Fatima was from Morocco. And one thing I can say about people, especially a lot of people from African nations, North Africa, Western Asia, and what people consider to be the Middle East, one thing I can say about them is this: they have an awesome sense of humor. They love to laugh. And that was so true of Fatima. And we would joke and we would laugh and talk about things. It was just hilarious, right? She was this tiny little lady, right? And sometimes she wear her hijab, sometimes she wouldn't. And we would be joking at dialysis, you know, while she's putting me on. And she would talk about her family in Morocco and things like that. And I just hope that if she was there visiting family in Morocco, I hope she's okay. And if she was still here when it happened, I hope that her family is okay. Because when you're a dialysis patient, when you're a patient in any chronic illness and you see the same medical professionals over and over again, you develop a relationship with them. And, you know, you start to want the best for them because they're not just somebody doing a job. It's, you know, it becomes closer. So if Fatima, if you're ever watching this, you know, my heart is with you and your family. And I hope your family made it out safe. I hope all the families, you know, that survived made it out safe. You know, I hope that they are okay. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking about right now. Nurse Fatima, man, she was a sweetheart. Definitely. All right, so let me see. Amin Zari, thank you so much. Says families and neighbors are the only support system working right now. And that makes me sad because I think it should be more than just that. I think, yes, families and neighbors support system, but I think above that, I think governmental systems should also be the support system on top of that. That's what I think. I think, you know, government systems should prop up as well the family and neighbor support system. But thank you so very much. Sorry, Fairy says, don't hide in the basement if it has a dirt floor. Oh, thank you very much for that. All right. Amin Zari says, JB, this is important. The government refused to ask for help until today. Can you imagine how many died because of this inaction? Oh my gosh. First help got here today, 40 hours after. Are you in Morocco? I mean, I'm sorry, I was not looking at the chat the entire time. Are you in Morocco? Amin says the death toll is suspected to top 13,000, yet the king's government still hasn't mobilized any resources other than organize a funeral prayer today. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Wait. I'm in Morocco. The government went completely silent for 48 hours, and until today, no request for help was sent to other countries. Jeez. Oh my gosh. See, this is why I wish I had a producer, but I don't have one, so I can star all these, so I can see all these. But thank you so very much, Amin. Oh my gosh. Give me as much information. Let me see. There are no prayers at that time. Oh, earthquake struck at 11:15. There are no prayers at that time. I think that's what. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Amin. You see. Be careful. Yes, Amin. Thank you so much. He said we have scammers on WhatsApp asking for donations. Be very careful for people asking for donations. All right, because a lot of times people will try to ask for donations and try to pull at your heartstrings, and they are nowhere near Morocco, and they're claiming that they were there and their family perished. Be very careful about who you give money to. It says pretending to be victims or organizations collecting money for victims. Thank you so very much for that as well. Oh my gosh. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for the updates. Yes, Mizu says Jaybe, be ashamed to lose all those beautiful old buildings. Yeah, and really those, those old buildings, there's a lot of history behind it. So yeah. Hmm. Let me see. Wow. So yeah, what's going on there? I'll keep an eye on what's going on in the later developments regarding Morocco. But yeah, so that's it for that news report. And so let me do these announcements really quick first. Please make sure to like the video if you have not already. That pushes us out into the algorithm as well. And if you guys would like to, you guys can also join our mailing list at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. That gives you guys the updates of whenever we go live or upload clips as well. If you guys would like to send us an email regarding any news that you may find out or inquiries, you guys go to info@revblacknetwork.com. If you guys would like to, you guys can go and visit our website at revolutionaryblackoutnetwork.com as well. Also, if you guys would like to, then if you guys would like to reach out to me, you guys can go to James B. Fauntleroy at outlook.com. That's my email address, my personal email address that I use for the public. And if you guys have not, then you guys can actually go to, we're also fundraising for our graphics designer, Erin. She does great work. You guys go to Venmo at Revolutionary Blackout or Cash App $mutual aid forever, so that we can make sure that we pay our staff what they demand, not what we set for them. All right. So the next story I'm going to be going into is actually a good news story. So I wanted to go over that because that was a tragic story that has happened in Morocco, but I want to go over a good news story now in order to kind of, levy things up so that when we end the stream, everybody's not walking away with so much sadness that they can't operate throughout the day. I, want to add some silver linings to our world. And this is a silver lining for me being a kidney dialysis patient. So I want to share what this is. What are we talking about as well? So we're going to be talking about good kidney news. And so this has something of great interest to me. So I'll be talking about this, and this is going to be some good news that I would like to discuss as well. I'm trying to incorporate some good news as well whenever I talk about, deep tragedies like this, because I don't want us to be depressed into inaction. I want at least to say some good news as well. So let's go into the article. So I have an article here that I'm going to be sharing. And this is out of the Good News website, goodnewsnetwork.org. So if you guys are looking to add some good news to your life, then you guys can go to Good News Network. And so this says implantable artificial kidney that frees patients from dialysis on horizons after successful trial. So let's get into it. So this is what it is, as you guys can see. So as a kidney dialysis patient, I kind of know a little bit. So of course you can see both the kidneys, the left and right kidney up here. As you see, the red line is the arteries, one of the primary arteries, and then the primary vein structures. If you see, then you have an arterial line that goes within the artificial kidney, and then you have an out. It's kind of like a in and an out. So the out goes into the venous or veins part of the arteries. And then you also have a waste output that goes straight into the bladder. So this is basically how the kidneys work, where it actually has an arterial and a venous that goes input, cleans the blood, restores the pH balance, and then it also has an out. But then it also is connected to the bladder, which all the impurities that are extracted through the blood intravenously, as well as excess fluid that is directed also to the bladder for you to execute it as well. So that's how basically it works. So we're going to get into it. It says sufferers of living with kidney failure can also look forward to a future without dialysis or long waits for an organ transplant. Oops, this is way too small. Make sure that you guys can see it all. Okay. Oops. Sorry about that. So thanks from the University of California in San Francisco that produced an implantable device that mimics the organ's daily functions. So this is important. It says the first clinical trials show that kidney cells housed within the device called a bioreactor can work quietly in the background like a pacemaker and does not trigger the recipient's immune system to go on the attack, a major stumbling block for patients who need to take the harsh immunity suppressing drugs after receiving donor transplants. More than 500,000 people in the United States receive dialysis several times a week, like myself, whereby their blood is filtered by a machine. And just to let you guys know, the machine, the dialysis machine, whether it's through Braun, Fresenius, or other companies, what they do is they use typically a tube-like structure, and that tube-like structure is called a dialyzer. And the dialyzer, when you look into it, is actually a series of hundreds of, maybe if not 1,000, little itty-bitty string-like tubes. So basically, the blood goes through those tubes, and what happens is a reverse osmosis that goes on what's inside the dialyzer. And so the dialyzer actually pulls out the impurities as well as excess fluid And then through that dialysate flow, it actually pulls it out and then it executes it down the drain, right? So basically doing the job of the kidney for you at a particular location that you have to go to. And depending on your kidney function, depending on how, bad it is, sometimes you may go, I've seen people go 1 time a week to dialysis, 2 times a week. Average is typically 3 times a week, like myself. I've seen one young lady who is going 5 times a week. And so it just depends on the patient. It depends on the KT over V. It depends on the creatinine levels, the BUN. It depends on these things as well. But, according to labs, so they have particular labs in order to get those numbers. But the thing is that that's what happens. Now, with somebody like me, the process of going to dialysis is I have to go to dialysis 3 times a week. And depending on the type of access you have, a lot of times when people start dialysis, they start off with what we call a perm cath. So a perm cath is basically the tube that has an arterial and venous. So one that comes, to the arteries, one goes to the venous, and then it's either, a lot of times it's placed first in your chest. For some people, depending on the way their body composition is, sometimes it's placed in their groin. So that's what they have. And so blood goes out of the arterial, and then it goes to the dialyzer, and then it comes back in through the venous. Now, this process is circulated many, many times, depending on the amount of blood flow, which is the amount of how fast the blood actually goes through the dialyzer. So typically here in Florida, the average for a perm cath is about 300, upwards of 350 blood flow. So that's what that is, versus if you have a graft or an arterial venous fistula or AV fistula. So that's what happens with them. Now, I've had catheters, many, many in the past. I actually have the scars to prove it. I'm not going to show you my chest now. I even have one in my neck one time. But there's also people who have what we call grafts as well as fistulas. And these are, a graft is basically an artificial type of tubing that connects the artery and vein together, but it's through artificial tubing so that you can get stuck with a needle instead, which means that it heals over, which is even better, which prevents less infections. The fistula is a natural artery and vein fused together in order to be able to have, instead, a fistula is better, which I have. And now I have what's called a graft, a hero graft, which connects directly to my heart. So I get stuck with needles every other day, 3 times a week. And these needles are not small. And so I'm saying all that in the process to let you guys know that if something like this were to come up, and if it were to pass human trials and prove to be successful, and if I were to get something like this, instead of having to get a kidney transplant, the process to get a transplant would be way shorter. Way shorter. Meaning, I wouldn't have to try to find a donor or wait for a cadaver. I wouldn't have to wait for somebody to die in order for me to receive a kidney. On top of that, I don't have to worry about the immunosuppressive drugs, medications that they give me, which cost thousands of dollars per year. And so then I would have to be at risk also of this immunosuppressive drugs or anti-rejection drugs, as many people know them, for having this. So this would basically be like almost like an implant that acts as a kidney. Basically, is taking the dialysis machine and shrinking it down many times and just putting it inside your body. So that is something that is amazing to me, is that they will be able to do that. And then I would no longer have to get stuck by 15 gauge needles, twice in an arm, 3 times a week. I wouldn't have to worry about preserving my dialysis access. And then if it stops working, I have to go to the hospital or go to an outpatient center to get it repaired or to get it fixed. Right? I don't have to worry about these things. And so this is what's important, because this medical breakthrough, this technological breakthrough would help so many thousands of people who are on kidney dialysis now. So then you don't have to sit there and wait for a kidney transplant, and you don't have to be subject to big pharma with the immunosuppressive drugs at all. So that's the process, just a little bit, to let you guys know how things work. Now, it says only about 20,000 people receive them each year. An implantable artificial kidney would be a boom. It says device developed by the university's kidney project has been successfully implanted and tested in pigs for 7 days. A next step will be a month-long trial, first in animals, then in humans. It says the scientists plan to fill the bioreactor with an additional kidney cells that can mimic all the functions, such as balancing the body's fluids and releasing hormones to regulate blood pressure, and then a full artificial kidney will be born. Now, just to let you guys know, when it comes to also regulating the blood pressure, one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that the kidneys actually secrete a particular hormone that actually activates your bone marrow into producing red blood cells. So typically a lot of people who are on kidney dialysis also have anemia. So instead of also having to get that medication for anemia, then if you have these cells that automatically secrete this hormone to stimulate our red blood cells, then that also gets rid of the need for these different types of medications that help us to prevent us from having anemia. So that's another point as well. And yes, I get that medication. Gosh, how often? I think I get that medication. I think it's like twice a month, something like that. But yes. So it says the artificial kidney will make treatment for kidney disease more effective and also much more tolerable and comfortable. So this is from Dr. Shuva Roy, a bioengineering professor at UCSF School of Pharmacy. Says we need to prove that a functional bioreactor will not require immunosuppressant drugs, and we did. We had no complications and can now iterate up, reaching for the whole panel of kidney functions at the human scale. In a published study in the journal Nature Communications, the team details how the engineered bioreactor can connect directly to blood vessels and veins, allowing the passage of nutrients and oxygen, much like a transplanted kidney would. It says silicon membranes keep the kidney cells inside the bioreactor safe from attack by the recipient's immune cells. The team used a type of kidney cell called the proximal tubular cell, which regulates water and salt, as a test case. Co-author H. David Humes, MD, from the University of Michigan, had previously used these cells to help dialysis patients in intensive care units with life-saving results. So they tracked the data from the kidney cell inside the bioreactor and the recipient animals for 7 days after transplantation, and both did well. So we're going to see how this works. And then I also have a few thoughts regarding this. And I'm going to be tying, the efforts of Big Pharma as well as the system, the medical system, along with this. So be prepared because I have a few thoughts as well. So I'll see you guys on the other side.
People living with kidney failure can soon look forward to a future without dialysis or an endless wait for a transplant organ. Combining continuous treatment with total mobility, the implantable bioartificial kidney will give patients back their health, freedom, and quality of life. The compact device will replicate many functions of healthy kidneys and will not require immunosuppression drugs. The bioartificial kidney combines a mechanical hemofilter to remove toxins from blood and a bioreactor containing engineered renal tubule cells to maintain water volume, electrolyte balance, and metabolic functions. Highly efficient membranes, constructed from semiconductor silicon wafers, enable filtration without requiring pumps or electrical power, while protecting the renal cells from rejection by the patient's immune system. The biocompatible device attaches to the circulatory system and removes toxins to the bladder as waste. After a decade of engineering development to refine the hemofilter and bioreactor components, preclinical prototypes of the implantable bioartificial kidney have been successfully created. Cleanroom microfabrication processes have been established to reliably produce high-quality silicon membranes. Tissue culture protocols have also been optimized to reproducibly grow renal tubule cells and maintain their function. The silicon membranes were mounted in polycarbonate housing to construct hemofilters, and in similar fashion, bioreactors were assembled to immunoprotect the renal tubule cells. The hemofilter and bioreactor components were then connected to create bioartificial kidney prototypes for benchtop and preclinical testing. In proof-of-concept experiments, the hemofilter operated under blood pressure alone, without systemic anticoagulation, while the renal...
So just some of you that were asking questions like electrical power, it is purely by your blood pressure. So your blood flow and pressure are what power it. So basically, yeah, just to answer you guys' question, because I knew you guys were going to be asking that question, but it came up automatically in video. That's why I didn't stop to answer it yet.
Coagulation, while the renal cells in the bioreactor remained alive and healthy without immunosuppression. Further improvements will scale up the prototypes with additional silicon membranes and renal cells, creating clinical devices that can demonstrate sustained treatment of kidney failure in human trials. The implantable bioartificial kidney will provide the therapy and mobility patients need to move beyond the burdens of dialysis and organ shortage, and once again enjoy the freedoms of everyday life.
So basically, that's how it is. So is it exciting? Yes, I think it's very exciting. Now, here's a couple of thoughts that I had regarding this issue regarding this artificial kidney. First of all, capitalism breeds innovation. It's funny how capitalism breeds innovation, but that was developed in a public college. Interesting. Because it wasn't capitalism that bred it. It was actually public dollars that did the research and development for that. And so when people talk about capitalism breeding innovation, it didn't innovate it didn't innovate shit in this regard. And it wouldn't have. You want to know why? Because there's more money in operating kidney transplants. Dialysis is huge business. Huge business. Billions of dollars a year. Right? You have Fresenius. You have DaVita. You have some that are nonprofit. But for the most part, dialysis is massive business. And so when you have these systems, along with Big Pharma, of course they want to keep the system in place. They don't want to innovate themselves out of existence. Capitalism only innovates as long as it knows that it can make more money off of something. If anything inches closer towards curing people, it says, nope, we can't, because we got to think about our shareholders. And so this is why it is important that it is through public institutions and public dollars that these things are innovated. Now, here's my concern. Some private institution or some private company is going to come in and go, oh, we would like to get the patent for that. Swipe the patent, make it illegal so that nobody else can have it. And then they're going to start trying to make money off of saying, we got an artificial kidney for you. All you have to do is pay us this hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then we can implant it in you. And then what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to circumvent some of the technology that the public institution implemented so that it can work at its optimal level. And it's going to be, well, we don't have to use all these different things. We can use this other piece because it's cheaper and we can make more profit. And then guess what? Then the artificial kidneys that were actually developed for humans will actually start working less. And so then you may have to start getting them changed out more often. Oh, your artificial kidney is not really working out. You need to swap it out for a new one. When in reality, when it was originally formulated and built by a public institution, it was to last the entire lifetime of the person that's using it. You can't tell me that's not how capitalism works. You can't tell me that's how business people and shareholders think, because I know that's how they think. And so this is exactly how it would go. And this is exactly why, and I see Roger coming in the comments, but this is why, look, when it comes to private equity, they should not be involved anywhere near the ownership or development or buying the patent for this. And in fact, I think the information for this should be completely open source, shared by all of, for all people in medicine. And in fact, I am one of those people who think that we should have a nationalized healthcare system so that they can have a bunch of these at the ready that are developed by public institutions and that are given to people who need these, who are on kidney dialysis. I was born with a disease called nephrotic syndrome. It is a juvenile kidney disease that affects the glomerulus within inside your kidneys, the glomerular filtration units. And in that, which means that my kidneys do not filter out of the impurities like it should. And so I would need something like this. And this would also save a ton of money medically. Because do you know what's involved in having to at least even just find somebody for a kidney transplant, a donor? Not only would that person have to have a blood type match, tissue type match, oral exam, mental evaluation, physical exam. And then on top of it, a lot of hospitals also require you that you have a fund where you raise money and then they keep that fund, you have to keep that fund replenished. And on top of that, you have to have 2 insurances. 2, not 1, 2. So for people like me that are within the hair's breadth above poverty, according to the United States government, I have Medicare and Medicaid. You have to have 2. And then on top of it, once the transplant is done, which range between ranging between I think $150,000 to $250,000 for that operation. Then on top of that, you have to purchase the immunosuppressive medications in order to keep your kidney in place. And if it fails, you go back on dialysis. So this kind of circumvents a lot. And a lot of these companies are going to be like, yeah, we really don't want this to happen. Or if they do want it to happen, they want to make as much money off of it as possible. This is why this system needs to be changed. Look, insulin, right? Developed by a doctor, patent was sold for $1 for everybody to have freely, right? But that's not what happened. Now insulin's marked up like 300%. I'm sorry, like a 100% or 1,000% in some cases. Takes $3 to $6 to make a vial of insulin. They're charging you $300 just for a bottle, just for a vial of insulin. They could charge you $30 for a vial of insulin. That would be a 10-time markup. But no, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So it's the same thing. And there's a ton of Black people on dialysis. Ton. Most of the people at my dialysis center are Black. There's maybe a handful of white people. And a lot of us are, as far as class goes, we're at the bottom of the hierarchy, class-wise. I've known some homeless dialysis patients. The only time that they really get a good rest is when they come to dialysis and go to sleep. So this is my concern, is with the system, not necessarily the actual device itself. And just imagine how much better we could do if we actually had more funding to our public institutions. If all of our research and innovation and development actually went to our public institutions even more. Imagine if we actually propped up our public education system so that we can make it so that they can develop things even better. Imagine if we didn't have the school to prison pipeline. You may have a student out there that has the type of mind that can think of some amazing medical innovation systems that could actually help us. But instead, they're serving in juvie. Or instead, they're too poor and they're just working someplace because the system failed them. They're working some low-wage job somewhere. And then on top of it, the jobs are low wage. So the point is that a systemic shift would actually change the game, even in regards to health, the health of people like myself. I wouldn't have to get into a waiting list for a transplant. A, B, and B positive blood types typically have a waiting list time of about 1 to 2 years. By the time you get into the negatives, it's about 4 years. If you're O negative, you got like 6-year waiting list. Imagine how many people you could take off the waiting list just through having that. Just imagine the quality of life that people would improve. I'd be able to do more live streams on my channel. So yes, is this good news? Yes, but with a caution. Because you and I both know the medical device manufacturers, big pharma, and hospital systems too. They're going to get their grubby little greedy hands on it out in a privatized system. When in reality, it should be nationalized. It should all be nationalized. So, what do you guys think about this new technological innovation? And I've had people for like 4 years send me articles regarding new artificial kidney. And they're like, oh, look, you got a new artificial kidney. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But now it's getting serious. They're really pushing up the innovation. So let me go to the chats to talk to y'all. Thank you so much for the super chat. Mouse SF says, JB, thanks for getting me on block. Yeah, you're cool. Thanks, Mouse. Roger Meadow says, let's get making it under a co-op ownership before it's too late. I mean, that's the least I'll accept is co-op ownership. That's the least I'll accept. I honestly think that anything medical should be nationalized. But yes, Roger, that's the minimum I'm willing to accept is co-op ownership. But thank you so much. All right, so let's go to the rest of the chat. Creative Experiment says, maybe we could afford to make less iPhones and more robo kidneys. The thing is that the iPhone is a private, Apple is a private company, right? Well, technically, I think it's a publicly traded company, but it's private. So because they have shareholders. But the thing is that I don't want the artificial kidneys to be bought by some private company with shareholders, and then they try to make as much profit off of it. I do not want that. I think it should be owned by the public, and the manufacturing and distribution of it should be paid for through tax dollars. That's it. That's all. That's how I think. Let's go. Let me see. Charlie Brown Politics says his health was about healthcare, not profit. Let me see. GM Mom says, yeah, because you're talking about a company that has already bought the patent. I'm talking about patent companies don't own. Oh, you're talking to somebody else in the chat. You guys are really chopping it up. Creative Experiment says it's basically a filter on a microchip, but we mostly use microchips for Xbox and PlayStation. Oh my goodness. You guys are really chopping it up, man. Willem says, rent your house, rent your modem, rent your innards. Oh my goodness. Creative Experiment says, don't buy the Apple Robo Kidney. Oh my God. Fintech Cafe says curing. That's a big note for Big Pharma. Yep. They do not like, look, curing? No. That's taking the person out of the market. The Jam Mom says anyone could buy the rights to this patent and start a company based on those tech. I think I'm at the point now when it comes to medical tech. I think it should be government owned and not for sale. Willem says, I don't mean to be a naysayer. There is great potential and much we can improve when it comes to technology. There's no good thing capital cannot ruin. Oh, of course. Look, I'll be honest with you. And I'm going to, I'm just adding to your comment, Willem. The thing is that in this system, my trust in it is actually lower than it would be if, say, we were living in Cuba. You know what I'm saying? I just, I think it's good news, but I'm being measured in my excitement as well, because yes, it is good news, but I also see capital investors licking their chops and waiting for it to pass human trials and going, oh, we're going to buy it and we're going to take it to market. That's honestly what I think. And they're going to try to do it. And once they do that, it feels like it's going to be kind of over, So yeah. JB, this company could do a setup like Mozilla and Linux. Do with it, then we can all get access to it. Bad Cookie says, agree, JB. Nothing is based on health, and living of a human should not be made private, but this is America. They will privatize air real soon. Just wait. They already started the water wars. Yep, and I talked about that last week, actually, about water. If you guys have not, you guys can actually go into the playlist for the JB show. I talked about the water last week as Biden, his government, his regime is trying to privatize our water here in the United States, which is complete and utter bullshit in my opinion. Our creative experience says by the time innovation gets to market, it was already sitting on the shelf for a decade, not being used on purpose to prevent undermining short-term profits. So yeah, that's basically it. So did you guys like the stream? I liked it. All right. So if you guys have not, then you guys can also go to our mailing list at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com to join our mailing list as well. Any email inquiries, go to info@RevBlackNetwork. And then if you guys would like to, you guys can go to our website at revolutionaryblackoutnetwork.com. If you guys would like to reach me, you guys can always go to James B. Fontlaurie at outlook.com as well. By the way, I'm also really excited because later in this month, on the 23rd, we will be having our event in order to distribute care packages to the homeless. I'm excited for that, for the Orlando Revolutionary Blackout Network Mutual Aid Chapter. So we're going to be doing that. I cannot wait. So as that comes closer, then I will let you guys know. But we're definitely doing it on the 23rd. We decided as a group. And so when that happens, about a week or so before, on my channel as well as here on RBN, I'll be making the announcements and I'll be promoting the hell out of that. That's going to be beautiful. I can't wait. I'm excited. So we get to go out there and help our community, especially the most disenfranchised among us. And also just let you guys know, I will be having a discussion on my channel. Just letting you guys know. I'll be live at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my channel. And just to let you guys know, this is going to be my thoughts basically on the interview between Dr. Cornel West and Jimmy Dore. So I'll be giving my complete thoughts on that at 4 p.m. Eastern today. So in about an hour and a half. So if you guys would like to tune into that, then you guys can tune into that. But yes, I will be giving my thoughts on there so you guys are aware of what's going on in my head regarding that. So thank you very much for that. And anything else? Wait, am I forgetting anything else? Yes. So, okay. So I got to get going. But look, like I say, all the time, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. And when you're leaving the world better than you find it, take the time to talk to your neighbors about how the system is. A lot of times they know, but what we can do to improve it. Because the tragedy that's happened in Morocco, I would like to see us change our system so that we don't suffer as badly. I want to minimize the amount of suffering that people have to experience within a given system. And also, building community with people also strengthens us so that if in case these tragedies do strike, you also have community members around and all to as well to depend on. And then also always, try to find good news as well to kind of make you feel better within yourself. The story about, the artificial kidney is good news. For somebody like myself, I'm happy about it because this could be an answer for me, not necessarily a kidney transplant by an actual kidney organ, but an artificial kidney that I could have that could help me. And just think about if we actually had a nationalized healthcare system, how more efficient this would be and the rollout would be and how fast it would roll out. So think about that as well. So like I always say, smoke him if you got him, drink him if you got him. If you ain't got him, then laugh. Watch something funny because joy is revolutionary. And yeah, I'll see you guys at 4 p.m. on the Jaybe Font channel. And have a lovely, lovely day. Oh, my bad. Mwah! Forehead kisses to all of you. Thank you for watching and solidarity with Morocco.